Hello Internet, and thank you for joining me for my Is It Any Good Yet series, where I'll be taking games that have had a controversial development or launch cycle and replaying them later down the line to figure out if they are in fact any good yet. In this episode I'll be looking into Tom Clancy's The Division, which was originally released by Ubisoft and Massive Entertainment in March 2016. After enjoying a well-received beta, the game went on to bask in equally generous praise after launch, achieving modest scores from gamers and critics alike. However, this premature gratification and hoo-haing began to quickly sour as fans complained of a repetitive and almost MMO-like quest system, unnecessary bullet sponge enemies, an unrewarding loot system, and bugs aplenty. Popularity began to drop, and the concurrent player numbers were swiftly grabbed by their balls and dragged down with it. So, skipping ahead a year, we can now look back at The Division and ask, have things changed? The easiest way to answer this is simply by saying yes, but that in itself leaves a gaping hole where a bit of explanation is needed, so I'll just rephrase my answer as a yes, but it's still got a fucking way to go. This is where the game fundamentally struggles. It flirts with a number of genres but never fully commits itself to one in an engaging enough way to keep the gameplay flowing in a natural manner. To put it simply, The Division is and always has suffered from an identity crisis, and it never fully realises its potential within the genres that it carefully dips its big toe in. Players are thrust into an open world environment which can be played almost as a solo experience, as other players are only encountered when within safe houses, in the PvP area, or when specifically grouped up using the in-game finder. By this standard, the game almost presents itself as an optional MMO, which can remove almost all of the player interaction, yet leave you with the same grindy style of MMO questing, rare mob farming, and dungeon style instances. The gameplay consists of a series of level gated zones, which players can advance through by completing main story instances and are then fleshed out by a series of encounters and side missions. These are usually a combination of run here, kill this and defend that scenarios that transpire themselves as different iterations across the game's numerous zones, and can sometimes fall victim to nothing more than the mob wave bullet orgy, fighting off enemies while you watch a timer eventually drag its large ass down to zero. This style of grind leveling could have potentially pulled this title kicking and screaming into the nether of shithole games that end up in the bargain bin, were it for not one key thing. This game is actually very fucking fun to play. The cover mechanics and gunplay are extremely satisfying and can lead to some very memorable and well thought out enemy encounters, especially when experienced with friends. Along with a range of different skills and builds that can be selected and pursued, this game offers a very intuitive take on what is effectively a real world RPG. Specific loot can be crafted and acquired in order to enhance your builds and further strengthen your role as a support, tech or tank based character. That being said, end level gear chasing is currently limited to only one real very competitive set. Now, while I won't say the name, current Division players will know it begins with an A and ends with a fuck everything. Graphically, this game is an absolute marvel. While it is an obvious downgrade from the original E3 footage, the game exhibits some absolutely breathtaking scenery, with realistic weather and snow buffeting the streets of New York as you endeavour to push into the very heart of it. The performance has also improved since launch, which has been helped along by the implementation of a DirectX 12 build on PC. That being said, the game still isn't void of any performance issues, and the results of this will obviously wildly vary depending on your system or platform. The Dark Zone, as it is called in game, offers a more challenging experience as elite mobs are spawned more frequently and in higher numbers, giving players the chance to get their grubby mitts on higher level gear, as well as put their current gear and skills to the test against more punishing enemies. The other notable difference, and one which has been at the centre of passionate debate and controversy, is the ability to kill other players that you encounter. Unlike other locations, the Dark Zone will phase you into an area that allows players to interact with one another without the need for pre-made grouping. PvP is also flagged to be constantly on, so other players can go rogue and kill one another in order to steal any loot that players may have found within the Dark Zone. These rogue players will be marked for death, and other players are encouraged to kill them with no risk of repercussion to themselves. Initially, players complained that the risk involved with going rogue was greater than the eventual payoff, and it left the system somewhat diluted and lackluster. So skip ahead almost a year, and has the situation improved much? Yes and no. The Dark Zone has been reworked a number of times in order to provide a more gratifying experience for players, but it's not uncommon to encounter pre-made kill squad groups who will wait to spring a tasty 4v1 ball slapping session upon the face of any player that is unfortunate enough to cross them. Now that doesn't mean that friendly experiences are non-existent, as grouping up with other players to take down elite mobs can be commonplace practice as they strive to achieve a common goal of shooting stuff in the face for loot. The experience can be exhilarating, but it offers a very frustrating glimpse into what the rest of the game zones could have looked like. Other players running from objective to objective, killing enemies and completing goals with other people that they stumble upon. While this can be achieved by manually teaming up with players, it's missing that natural experience of a living and breathing world that other more centrally based MMO games are well known for. The lack of in-game supported clans or guilds further confuses this game as to exactly what kind of online open world it is trying to sustain itself in. Now that being said, if you prepare yourself for exactly what the game is and what it isn't, and you've friends to bring along for the ride, then there's a very fucking enjoyable game at the heart of what Massive Entertainment have created. The light but often thoughtful tactical elements and incredibly satisfying combat makes this game an absolute joy to play when shared with others. The developers are also constantly working on the game, and while they don't tend to act on the every whim of their player base, they do seem to listen to some of the feedback, and in fact have adjusted some of the game's annoyances to fall in line with these. With the new patch 1.6 looming on the horizon, I'm cautiously curious to see what direction this game goes in next. So that's it, but once again, in order to pander to the human condition of forever chasing closure, I award this game a P. For please don't fuck this up. This is a game that is constantly dancing on the edge of rising into something altogether better or falling far into the realms of decay and neglect that will see its player base fall even further. Massive need to identify this game's core strengths and highlight these as a narrative for which the rest of the game is built upon. Digging too many fingers into one too many pies can leave this game feeling confused at times, but it could easily push itself to the top if it just settles on a genre and fucking runs with it. Anyway, thanks again for joining me. Once again, it's been an absolute pleasure. I'm Jordan from Cult Geek, over and out.